Hey, what's up everybody and welcome back to News Dose. And you know, the Activision Blizzard acquisition has been a really interesting topic to follow. It's just been a wild ride with turn after turn after turn, but this case has kind of taken a 180 as of recent. There for a long time, Sony kind of seemed to be in the ears of regulators, but with some recent updates, that no longer really appears to be the case outside of the FTC, which, you know, they kind of fight with idealistic views. Honestly, they're a big joke under Lina Khan's rule. It doesn't really seem like their arguments are going to stick, but that's been one of the crazy narratives from jump. Sony versus Microsoft, because Sony has been playing as the victim throughout this case. But it does appear that Sony took things a little too far, as regulators have seemingly turned on them, and that also now includes the United States government. In fact, yet another United States senator is looking into Sony for what they view as anti-competitive practices, as they requested answers from Sony's leadership. So yeah, we're going to go and get into that today, as well as Final Fantasy 16 and its big trailer. It is looking very good. And then also a confirmed big delay. So yeah, we do have a lot to get into today. Fun times ahead. But before we do get into our first completely new topic, I actually want to go ahead and fix a mistake that I made in yesterday's video. It actually, honestly, it really does bother me when I make mistakes, because I never intend to steer you all in the wrong direction. So as soon as somebody pointed out in the comments that I had made a mistake, it just kind of ate at me. Basically, though, what happened here is that yesterday we talked about Ubisoft Plus now being available on Xbox for $18 a month. That price is a little bit on the higher side of things, which was a little surprising to me at the time. But something that I didn't realize here was that this does also include day one releases. That is a very important part of this announcement. I don't know how I missed it, but it does say right on their website, new releases day one. You won't have to wait to play the latest Ubisoft games with premium edition access the moment they release. Again, I don't know how I missed it. I usually catch this stuff and post at it, but this does ultimately make that high price tag a little bit more enticing. I mean, it is still a little on the higher side of things compared to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, so you can kind of make an argument here that it is still too high. But hey, if you do like Ubisoft games, you might want to go ahead and subscribe to Ubisoft Plus on Xbox for $18 a month. Moving on though, let's just go and talk about a game here that got funded on Kickstarter, being Poglings. Now, if you grew up playing Sonic Adventure 2, one of the more memorable parts of that game was its Chow Garden. I mean, I adored Sonic Adventure 2 on a Dreamcast as a kid. I absolutely loved that game. And a part of the reason why was Chow Garden, where you take care of these little creatures. You kind of find them scattered throughout each level, then you kind of level them up and participate in all these different mini games. I actually did not realize at the time that this game mode was as beloved as what it is until I actually grew up. But apparently I wasn't the only one that enjoyed this, as you know, a lot of fans still talk about this game mode to this day. And if you are one of those people that like Chow Garden, well, Poglings, this game might be for you. This is a full-fledged game that was inspired by Chow Garden. It is strikingly similar, though apparently there's also some Zelda and Animal Crossing inspirations as well. But with 26 days still to go, Poglings has already smashed its goal of $40,000 in funding in just 50 minutes, and since then, it's also surpassed several of its stretch goals. As of this recording, it's already raised $205,000 with 3 stretch goals still left to go, $350,000 being its highest tier. So yeah, if you've dreamed about a new Chow Garden, well, Poglings is on its way to the Nintendo Switch and Steam in 2024, and also likely Xbox and PlayStation, depending on how much funding it actually gets. Though do keep in mind here that there might be staggered releases. Speaking of new game announcements though, Immortals of Aveum just got a release date and new gameplay trailer. This is actually an EA Originals title with what appears to be high production value, and it's a new magic-based first-person shooter, and actually a fairly interesting one at that. It does kind of remind me a little bit of a mix between Destiny and something like maybe Ghostwire Tokyo with its magical-based elements. But if you do like first-person shooters, and if you want something just a little bit different with some fantasy elements to it, Immortals of Aveum might be worth keeping an eye on. Even better yet, it's not too far away, with its planned release being July 20th for $60. Now, I do think that this game might be very dependent on its reviews. I'm not completely sold on it just yet, but I do like what EA is trying to do here. As of recent, it does seem like we mostly get sequels and remakes anymore, but it's nice to see EA, this big publisher here, invest into these original titles as well and see if they can maybe find some success. Again, though, this game will release on July 20th, which includes Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. Okay, so let's just go and get into this Activision Blizzard situation, though, as this story is, as some of you all may know, ever evolving. There's just always something happening with this case, and there has been a few smaller updates as of recent that might actually impact this acquisition, but none are more amusing than Sony's complaints just kind of backfiring on them. See, one of the most eye-popping and just controversial claims that's come of this acquisition is that Nintendo isn't actually a competitor. Sony, ironically, did lobby for a high-end console market to define the competition, which would exclude Nintendo. And the reason that Sony lobbied for this is because it kind of disregards the fact that Nintendo didn't need Call of Duty to succeed, which would benefit Microsoft's case. So, I mean, this was always kind of a weird claim because honestly, it's just wrong. Nintendo absolutely is competition. They always have been. They always will be. But here we are, and the United States government has taken Sony's claim very serious. Though in kind of a funny turn of events, it doesn't really aid Sony even in the slightest. In fact, this actually hurts their position, as the United States government is now claiming that Sony has a monopoly in Japan, in parts thanks to exclusive contracts that they make with Japanese publishers and developers. So they're now urging Japan to fix the problem, make Sony stop doing this type of stuff, which that would be a huge, huge blow to Sony's strategy. I mean, Final Fantasy 16 as an example, which we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but that was locked up by Sony. The United States, however, they're like, hey, this is a problem because Sony has 98% of the high-end console market in Japan, as Sony defined themselves. So we need this type of stuff to stop, and that's kind of what they're requesting Japan do right now. Well, that story's kind of continued on today as another United States senator, this time from North Dakota, sent a letter to Sony's CEO claiming their anti-competitive practices is impacting the United States market as well, and they want Sony to send them details about their exclusive contracts made. Now, does this person actually have authority to get Sony to actually reveal that information? Probably not likely, but it does further show that the United States government has completely turned on Sony amidst this very, very public acquisition. So let's just go and take a look at some of the different highlights from this letter. So it starts by saying, "Dear Mr. Yoshida, I write to express about Sony's efforts to protect its gaming console business from competition. For more than 20 years, Sony has utterly dominated the gaming console market, as that market has been defined by the Federal Trade Commission." Again, they are using Sony's very own argument. "I am concerned Sony's dominance of that market and its efforts to perpetuate its current position imperils an important economic development opportunity for North Dakota. Therefore, I write to request more information about Sony's anti-competitive business practices." They then continue on saying that given the growing significance of the gaming industry to North Dakota, I am troubled by reports Sony appears to leverage its dominance to exclude competition rather than enabling choice for players and developers. According to published reports, Sony controls over 68% of the global market for gaming consoles and a shocking 98% of the Japanese market. Again, they are using Sony's high-end console definition. But continuing on, increasingly it appears Sony's dominance is attributable to exclusionary practices, including paying game publishers not to distribute their games on rival platforms. Sony's anti-competitive conduct has also included lobbying the FTC and competition regulators abroad to oppose Microsoft's proposed acquisition of Activision, a transaction many legal and gaming industry experts believe would promote a more competitive gaming market. Even more troubling is the fact that Sony's lobbying of the FTC and other regulators began shortly after Sony itself acquired Bungie, another major gaming competitor. Sony's efforts to block this transaction apparently include a refusal to accept an agreement that fully addresses its concerns and would expand consumers' access to games. Sony's conduct hurts American consumers by leading to higher prices and reduced choice. Importantly, it also constrains economic opportunities for developers, including for small and independent developers. To ensure transparency regarding how Sony conducts its business, I ask you please provide unredacted copies of the following information. 1. All agreements that provide Sony with an exclusive right to distribute a game developed by an independent publisher. 2. All agreements between Sony and a game publisher that prevent the publisher from distributing its games on a rival subscription or streaming service. We do know that Sony blocks certain games from appearing on Xbox Game Pass. Number 3. All internal company documents describing the strategic rationale for Sony's acquisition of Bungie. So, yes, this is a very loaded statement with a lot of different things happening, and for as much as I've criticized some of the wording that regulators and even the government about this acquisition has used in the past, this letter is astonishingly well thought out and made points that I've not seen elsewhere. Now, on one side, no, I still absolutely do not agree with the high-end console market definition. I don't think that I ever will, but that is what Sony lobbied for, and, well, as you can see here, they got it. It just kind of backfired on them, as you can also see. But the senator did call Sony out for trying to manipulate regulators, all while refusing to accept any deal from Microsoft that would theoretically alleviate their concerns, and all while Sony themselves made an acquisition that was billions of dollars, being, of course, Bungie. No, it's not necessarily the size of Activision Blizzard, but this is the type of hypocritical claim that Sony has gone with throughout this acquisition, just in an attempt to stop the buyout. I don't know if a lot of people just don't realize this, or maybe they just willingly ignore it because, it benefits their narrative, but if I counted this correctly, 15 out of the 23 studios that's under the PlayStation umbrella was actually acquired. Not organically grown, as Sony likes to say, but contrary to what some people believe, PlayStation was built partially on acquisitions. That has been a big part of Sony's success historically. Now, we can kind of say that their strategy in acquisitions is different than Microsoft, and I think that that very much is true. But at the end of the day, acquisitions has played an important part in maintaining the historical dominance that Sony has achieved, and that's something that the senator is kind of pointing out with the Bungie acquisition. The senator is basically saying, we can kind of see through your accusations, we can kind of see through all of the different lies and how you've twisted the stories here and there, we see through it. So if they are to complain about an acquisition, maybe we should look into Sony as well and what they're doing here. Something else that was very notable here, though, was the claim that Sony's attempt to block the acquisition hurts American consumers because it leads to less choice, higher prices as Sony controls the market, and less economic opportunities for developers. In other words, Sony's dominant position allows them too much control with no repercussions, hence them leading the charge in increasing prices of their games to $70, and even console price increases in several regions, hence them also being against things like crossplay, or with them charging to upgrade for PlayStation 4 games. With better competition, though, Sony would have to second-guess some of those decisions instead of, leading the charge. There's also the importance of subscriptions, and that's something that we have seen benefited from competition. Sony themselves are now having to improve their own service because Game Pass has been a success and has done a good job in winning gamers over in recent years. As I always like to say, and you all can say it along with me, competition breeds excellence. And the Activision Blizzard acquisition could help even things out for Xbox and PlayStation just a little bit more, helping them better compete against each other. All in all, though, while this letter is certainly interesting, it's intriguing, I would say, the chances of anything actually happening from it is probably likely low, but this does add to the overall narrative that the United States government is very serious about their claims against Sony. They do see their business practices as, yes, a problem, and they're trying to look into it to see if they can change some things. I'd also say that this is bad news for the FTC because they are getting less and less support as time goes on. In fact, with some recent updates, it actually only sounds like the FTC is diminishing under Lena Khan's leadership. Let me know what you all think about this letter, though. Do you agree with it or not? Let me know in the comments below. Moving on, though, let's just go talk about some good games again, because Final Fantasy XVI just got another huge reveal. We've actually seen a lot of this game already. Honestly, I feel like maybe a little too much by this point, but they did show 20 minutes plus of gameplay at State of Play yesterday, and it's just more evident than ever before this game could actually be a special release. I'll just kind of put it this way. You can easily see why Square Enix and Sony are just so forthcoming with this game because it looks crazy good. At yesterday's State of Play, they did show how its combat works, which they're describing it as the series' first true action RPG. It does all play out in real time, almost like Devil May Cry, but you also have access to several elemental powers and abilities like a typical Final Fantasy game would. You can also fight as the icons themselves, which will completely change how the combat works. It just looks crazy with so much control at your fingertips. This really could ultimately be one of the most satisfying action RPGs when all said and done. Now, I do understand fans of classic Final Fantasy games, which, by the way, I very much am a fan of those games, but I do feel like if you were hoping for a turn-based RPG, you might feel a little bit indifferent about its full-on action direction. But at the same time, though, Final Fantasy has always been a franchise that just kind of reinvents itself. And I think especially with how modern games work anymore, and with how much Square Enix is investing in this game, the action elements does make a lot of sense to reach that more broad market. Really, though, with any Final Fantasy game, everybody kind of has their favorite. Some people like Final Fantasy 7, some like 8, some like 9, some like, 15. It doesn't matter. Everybody kind of has their own favorite, but for the most part, they're all typically pretty high quality. Final Fantasy 16, though, the story also seems interesting with it being a more mature take on a Final Fantasy franchise. You will play as the protagonist in several stages of his life, which I think is an interesting take as you can fully understand how the character got to where he is, rather than just kind of filling in the blanks. The only criticism that I think I have right now is that the facial expressions do come off as a little stiff at times, but outside of that, Final Fantasy 16 looks excellent, and it continues to be one of my most anticipated games of the year. If anything else, both this and Zelda made yesterday a very fun day for gamers. Now, unfortunately, though, we do have one last topic to go over here, and I'll try to make this one quick and to the point because I think most of us kind of already knew this was going to happen thanks to various leaks we previously heard about, and that's the delay for Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. It is now official. It is being delayed to February 2nd of 2024. So this is a pretty lengthy and significant delay here, though interestingly enough, they didn't exactly say why they were delaying it, which... this has led to a lot of speculation that they might make some major changes due to its backlash from its recent reveal, though reportedly, that's not actually the case here. According to Jason Schreier, it actually sounds like this delay is more about polish than anything else, and while a 9-month delay seems like a long time to simply polish a game, Jason Schreier did point out that's pretty normal for modern games as they try to fix bugs, further optimize performance, and things like server stability. So, there you go. Suicide Squad will be out next year, again on February 2nd, 2024, hopefully, though I still do kind of wonder if this will ultimately lead to success. While I'm all for delays when they're necessary, and in this case, it probably was necessary, though I feel like some of the backlash for this particular game is more about its style of gameplay than anything else. Who knows, though, maybe Suicide Squad comes out and surprises us all with a high-quality product. Let's go take a look at the poll of the day, though, where I asked you all, do you feel more confident with Zelda Tears of the Kingdom after its third trailer? And as you can see here, 33% of you all did say yes, 37% of you all then said I was already confident, and then 16% of you all said no. So it does seem like this trailer has won a lot of you all over. It did me as well. As I talked about yesterday, I was not overly impressed with some of the previous reveals that they kind of showed of this game. I figured it's still going to be good, but it wasn't necessarily wowing me the way I was kind of hoping, but that kind of changed yesterday. Probably one of the best trailers that I can recall in recent memory. Now, I still would like to see that confirmation on whether or not dungeons are actually in the game. It does seem like there's maybe hints that they will, but nonetheless, I just think that this game looks so good from a gameplay standpoint that, yeah, my excitement definitely grew with this trailer, as it seems like it did with you all as well. Luckily, though, we're not going to have to wait too much longer, as it will release next month. That's hard to believe, but we're almost there. Zelda Tears of the Kingdom will be out next month. Let's go. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.